Henyard says she is endorsing a new board, but not announcing who they are just yet, instead promising to name them later this month. Henyard is under investigation by the FBI.
You're using public funds for something that taxpayer dollars shouldn't.
The rise and fall of Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dalton, is a story defined by controversy, bold accusations, and a series of divisive leadership choices. To understand how her tenure devolved into crisis, it's essential to trace the chain of events that led to her spectacular fall from grace. Henyard's rise to power began amid tragedy and uncertainty. Following the unexpected death of the previous mayor, Henyard was rapidly thrust into a position of authority. The appointment process was rushed, leaving many residents and officials questioning her preparedness. From the start, her leadership style raised eyebrows. She quickly made a series of high-profile moves, firing long-standing employees and surrounding herself with loyalists. This created an atmosphere of control that was both praised and criticized. Her initial promises to revitalize Dalton brought hope to some, but the hope quickly turned to suspicion. Henyard's administration was soon marred by allegations of questionable financial management. Reports began to surface of her extravagant spending habits, including lavish Amazon shopping sprees, unnecessary luxury trips, and even the use of public funds to secure a personal police detail. This fueled rumors of corruption, further deepening public distrust. Meanwhile, Henyard's salary, significantly higher than Illinois' governor, stood in stark contrast to the financial struggles of Dalton's residents embracing the title of super mayor. Henyard's increasingly grandiose behavior seemed to shift her focus from the town's needs to her personal brand of leadership. Controversial board meetings turned into battlegrounds, with heated debates between her critics and loyal supporters. As the fractures within the community deepened, Henyard's combative approach to addressing her detractors only worsened the situation. She adopted a defensive stance, refusing to back down or engage openly with her critics. Allegations of corruption continued to mount, and despite calls for transparency, Henyard clung to power. She held private meetings, avoided tough questions, and presented herself as an embattled savior, determined to steer Dalton through turbulent times. However, the increasing evidence of financial mismanagement, abuses of power, and ethical violations could no longer be ignored. A sense of betrayal began to take hold within the community, with many residents questioning whether Henyard's administration had crossed a line. As the allegations escalated, federal investigators began to take notice. Whispers of a federal probe quickly gained traction, and the specter of legal trouble loomed ever larger. Henyard's supporters began to waver, and many who had once defended her leadership grew uncertain of her innocence. The narrative that had once painted her as the town's savior now seemed to unravel, as new reports of potential misconduct emerged, further eroding public trust. In response to mounting pressure, Henyard doubled down on secrecy and refused to engage with the public in a meaningful way. Town hall meetings, once intended to foster dialogue, became more like rallies, with Henyard cutting off discussions, avoiding tough questions, and abruptly ending sessions. This only intensified the frustration among Dalton's residents, who felt increasingly alienated and ignored. The situation reached its dramatic climax when federal agents raided Henyard's office and home, confirming the severity of the investigation into her actions. The raid marked the beginning of the end for Henyard's reign, as the legal ramifications of her conduct came into sharper focus. News of her arrest spread quickly, leaving Dalton's residents stunned and divided. For many, it was a moment of vindication, but it was also a sobering realization of the damage Henyard had done to the town during her tenure. By the time Henyard was arrested, Dalton was already reeling. The community was left to reckon with the fallout from her leadership, facing the difficult task of rebuilding trust and restoring stability after years of controversy and division. Henyard's story, from a meteoric rise to an equally dramatic fall, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing personal gain over the public good. It is a story that not only resonates in Dalton, but offers a broader lesson for communities everywhere.
At 6, embattled Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard is mounting a re-election bid.
Tiffany Henyard's arrest at her Dalton residence in the early morning sent shockwaves through the community, marking the dramatic culmination of a series of controversies that had plagued her tenure as mayor and township supervisor. Witnesses reported the presence of several federal officers entering the property, and Henyard's lover, Kamal Woods, who has faced scandals of his own, was reportedly present during her arrest, watching silently as she was taken into custody. While the specific charges against Henyard have not been officially disclosed, sources close to the investigation revealed that they likely include embezzlement, misappropriation of public funds, and obstruction of justice. Serious accusations tied to a federal inquiry into Henyard's management of Dalton and Thornton Township finances the arrest has ignited uproar across political circles in the south suburbs, where speculation and outrage are running high. To fully grasp the gravity of this moment, it is necessary to examine Henyard's tumultuous leadership since she first assumed office in 2021, a tenure marked by bold actions, larger-than-life proclamations, and an ambition that often veered into self-promotion from the moment Henyard took office. She positioned herself not just as a public servant, but as a figure of grand importance. She adopted the title of Super Mayor, showcasing her image across Dalton and Thornton Township. Her face and name became ubiquitous, plastered on billboards, event flyers, promotional materials, and even welcome signs, creating the impression that she was a living embodiment of the town's leadership and progress. While she described this visibility as a way to stay connected with her constituents, famously declaring in one public speech, "I am the people's mayor and supervisor," many critics saw it as excessive self-aggrandizement. They accused her of prioritizing personal branding over effective governance despite Henyard's dismissal of these accusations, claiming she was a leader who loved engaging with her community. Skepticism about her leadership only grew as more details of her controversial actions came to light. Her tenure became marked by a series of allegations of improper behavior and questionable decisions, many of which landed her in the headlines, often for the wrong reasons. These controversies painted a picture of a leader whose governance style was driven more by image and power than the interests of her constituents. One of the most significant issues that brought Henyard under scrutiny was her financial management. Reports suggested that taxpayer money was being used to fund personal endeavors, including lavish Amazon shopping sprees, extravagant trips, and even the hiring of a personal police detail. These expenditures raised serious questions about her commitment to fiscal responsibility, particularly in a community where many residents struggle financially. Critics argued that Henyard exploited her position for personal gain, a sentiment that grew louder as federal investigators began examining her administration's financial dealings more closely as Henyard's bold public persona continued to dominate headlines. It drew both admiration and criticism. Her supporters praised her charisma, arguing that her proactive and visible leadership made her relatable to the people she served. However, detractors highlighted her tendency to monopolize public attention and resources, pointing to her excessive self-promotion as evidence of deeper issues with her priorities in office. Her self-styled role as super mayor resonated with her base, but it alienated others, who felt it distracted from her effectiveness as a leader and represented a fundamental misunderstanding of what public service should entail as investigations into Henyard's activities intensified. The drama surrounding her administration only escalated. The combination of bold claims, divisive policies, and financial controversies created an atmosphere of uncertainty and mistrust within the community. Her administration was often described as chaotic and self-serving, with allegations of misusing public funds to bolster her personal image. Reports of lavish spending, including her Amazon sprees and luxury trips, drew the scrutiny of watchdog groups and public officials alike. Mounting outrage from the community led to calls for greater transparency, but Henyard seemed to double down on her position, often deflecting criticism or minimizing the seriousness of the accusations against her. By the time federal officials moved in to arrest Henyard, her reputation had become as polarizing as ever. Some continued to rally behind her, arguing that she had been unfairly targeted, while others felt vindicated, seeing the arrest as long overdue accountability for a leader they believed had failed to serve the people. The presence of Kamal Woods at her arrest only added an extra layer of intrigue, linking Henyard to an even more complicated web of personal and professional controversy. Woods, already known for his own scandals, was seen as part of the spectacle that had defined Henyard's time in office. For a leader whose tenure had been as much about spectacle as substance, Henyard's arrest served as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of governance that prioritizes image over integrity. The fallout from her arrest has left Dalton and Thornton Township reeling, as the community grapples with the damage caused by years of divisive leadership and financial mismanagement. Henyard's downfall, once seen as inevitable by many, underscores the dangers of placing personal ambition above the needs of the public and the importance of holding leaders accountable for their actions.
Not until 2025, yet Tiffany Henyard has officially decided she wants to stay as mayor despite the cloud of controversy.
Beneath the flashy image and self-proclaimed title of Super Mayor, a troubling pattern of alleged financial mismanagement quickly emerged. casting a long shadow over Tiffany Henyard's ambitious promises and polarizing leadership. Rumors of questionable spending surfaced almost immediately, with reports suggesting extravagant credit card use for purchases ranging from luxurious furnishings to costly vacations. Expenses many residents felt were disconnected from the community's needs. One of the most shocking examples of alleged misuse of taxpayer money was the infamous $2 million skating rink project. Critics argued that the rink was built without proper approval and was often only used for Henyard's personal events, effectively turning a publicly funded facility into a venue for her own self-promotion. The project became a symbol of Henyard's controversial decision-making, with some detractors calling it a vanity project funded by taxpayers, while her supporters defended it as a bold move to bring recreation to the town. However, the rink was only one part of a broader narrative of financial discrepancies. Perhaps the most striking revelation was Henyard's reported $43,000 Amazon shopping spree charged to village accounts in a single day. The audacity of the spending spree immediately drew intense criticism, fueling concerns about her disregard for transparency and fiscal responsibility. Critics argued that it underscored her habit of mismanaging public funds, while supporters tried to justify the purchases as necessary for the town's betterment. As the revelations piled up, a growing portion of the community began to view Henyard's leadership as emblematic of unchecked excess and self-indulgence. Her promises of improving Dalton seemed increasingly hollow in light of mounting allegations of dubious spending. What had once been seen as bold leadership now appeared as a series of vanity projects, leaving residents feeling betrayed by the very leader they had trusted to advocate for their best interest. The pattern of extravagant spending and financial mismanagement created an atmosphere of mistrust, escalating into a full-blown scandal. As investigations into Henyard's financial dealings deepened, her administration's credibility faltered, further alienating a community already grappling with the fallout from her controversial tenure.
Business in Thornton Township, which hit a roadblock tonight, not because of the weather, not because of logistics, but because two trustees
Tiffany Henyard's leadership style quickly became as controversial as her financial decisions, with her frequent clashes with the Dalton Village Board of Trustees standing out as a defining feature of her administration. From the very beginning, her interactions with the board were marked by tension, with meetings sometimes devolving into heated arguments. Henyard accused the trustees of abusing their power, while they accused her of sabotaging their efforts. In one particularly intense meeting, after being heckled by both trustees and residents, Henyard stormed out, declaring, "You all should be ashamed of yourselves," and walking out of the room. It was clear that she wasn't just fighting her critics, but the entire political establishment. Her combative behavior was not limited to the boardroom. It also spilled over into social media. Henyard frequently took to Facebook Live to name her critics, claiming that their opposition stemmed from jealousy or personal grudges. She even referred to her detractors as enemies of progress and vowed to expose them all. This public airing of grievances became a common sight, drawing both supporters who saw Henyard as a bold leader and detractors who questioned her leadership and temperament. Some residents even feared retaliation, claiming that Henyard used her position to suppress dissent. Whether through public humiliation or strategically wielding township funds, these tactics seemed to escalate the political climate in Dalton, with Henyard's relationships with key allies rapidly deteriorating. Board meetings became increasingly difficult due to Henyard's aggressive stance, and some meetings were adjourned early because of the absence of key board members. Two trustees, Carmen Carlisle and Chris Gonzalez, were notably absent from one such meeting, further fueling accusations that Henyard had alienated critical allies within her own administration. Trustees who had previously supported her began to turn against her, accusing her of consolidating power at the expense of transparency and collaboration. Carmen Carlisle, Henyard's former assistant, became one of her most vocal critics. Carlisle accused Henyard of disregarding established protocols and making decisions without consulting anyone. This sentiment was echoed by several others, who felt that Henyard had increasingly operated like a solo act, making decisions without the necessary collaboration or oversight. The tension between Henyard and the board continued to escalate as divisions deepened and trust eroded. According to Carlisle, a key part of the issue was Henyard's failure to attend scheduled board meetings, a fundamental part of any public servant's responsibilities. The controversial nomination of Ronald Burge as Dalton's police chief became another flashpoint. Henyard was accused of bypassing the board's approval for such a crucial decision. Despite a judge allowing Burge to serve in an interim capacity, the trustees felt that Henyard had acted without proper protocol. Burge's appointment only deepened the rift between Henyard and the board, especially since it was revealed that his state accreditation had lapsed. The trustees argued that the appointment was illegal, and they voiced strong concerns about Burge's qualifications for the job. Carlisle's departure from Henyard's camp was particularly damaging, as she had once been one of Henyard's closest allies. Carlisle accused Henyard of running the township like her personal fiefdom, even likening her leadership style to that of a private police force. Her testimony was echoed by other locals and business owners, who claimed that Henyard had used the township's resources to target her opponents. One business owner revealed that his company had been shut down after he refused to contribute to Henyard's campaign, while another said that Henyard used the police department to harass critics. These stories added to the growing perception that Henyard was using her position for personal gain and to silence those who opposed her. Perhaps the most shocking accusations, however, involved Henyard's handling of township finances. Trustees alleged that Henyard had been withholding financial information from the board and even fabricated checks to bypass board approval. What had once been believed to be a financially stable township was now revealed to be losing millions of dollars. The situation worsened when former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was appointed to investigate the township's finances. Her preliminary report revealed a disturbing lack of control over financial matters and pointed to widespread mismanagement. Henyard, however, rejected the findings, dismissing the report as a political hit job. She even accused her detractors of envy and hatred for questioning her leadership. One former trustee described the situation as a shell game, where funds seemed to disappear without explanation or accountability. The financial discrepancies, combined with her disregard for protocol, painted a picture of an administration more concerned with power and self-promotion than with serving the people of Dalton and Thornton Township. As the investigations into her conduct grew more serious, Henyard's position as mayor seemed increasingly untenable. The mounting pressure from both internal and external sources ultimately led to her downfall, with residents and critics alike demanding answers for the damage she had caused to the community.
Single resident, pay me what you owe me.
In a particularly notable Facebook Live video, Tiffany Henyard launched a scathing attack on her critics, labeling them as bigots and vowing to defend herself in court, claiming she would sue everyone for slandering her name and character. She declared that those behind the plot to destroy Tiffany Henyard would face her wrath. The nearly hour-long video showcased her combative nature as she fervently worked to protect her reputation. However, while Henyard was busy fighting back on social media, the FBI had quietly begun preparing their case against her. Reports indicate that federal investigators had initiated their inquiry earlier in the year. Speaking with witnesses and reviewing financial documents from Dalton, Thornton Township, and Henyard's political committee and charity. The investigation focused on allegations of money laundering and embezzlement of public funds. Henyard's arrest marked a turning point for the community, and once word spread, speculation arose that Henyard may have agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for leniency. The arrest sparked a heated debate within the community. Some of Henyard's supporters claimed that she was targeted because she was a young black woman in a position of leadership, with one admirer suggesting that her arrest was yet another example of the system trying to bring down a strong black leader. On the other hand, many residents and critics saw the arrest as long overdue, with one longtime Dalton resident remarking, "She's been running this town like her own personal kingdom for years." It's time she was held responsible. The implications of Henyard's arrest extend far beyond her own fate. The political climate in the south suburbs is poised for significant change now that the former mayor faces federal charges. Some residents and trustees fear that this scandal could tarnish the community's reputation, while others are calling for a new direction and fresh leadership. One trustee emphasized the need to restore integrity and trust in local government, suggesting that a new era of transparency and accountability is necessary as Henyard's case unfolds. Questions remain about the future of both Thornton Township and Dalton. Will her controversial career come to an end, or will she fight the charges and attempt a political comeback? The community is left to ponder the lessons from her rise and fall, and whether her arrest was a case of being unfairly singled out or a justified response to her alleged actions. For updates on this developing story, stay informed and share your thoughts in the comments below.